Disclaimer. Hey everyone! For this video, I'm going to be talking about Beyblade X and how I feel Takara Tomy perfected the concept of an anime stadium and kind of how we got to this point and compare it to the past to where I would say it's more or less decent attempts to failed attempts. So obviously, as we always have to establish, Takara Tomy and Hasbro work and collaborate on ideas. So obviously, because they work together, a lot of stuff inspires each other or for future stuff and releases, right? There's no doubting that. But let's talk about when this originally started. So essentially this begins with Beyblade Burst Turbo with the slingshot system. So say what you want about the bays being turned into crap or overall kind of like shoot performance, right? But it all lies in the stadium, and especially with how they worked with on the animation would now present these new gimmicky stadiums for the bays to battle in, and Hasbro would produce the products for where you can do those battles and do that stadium gimmick. Now, essentially what Slingshot was, where basically it's your performance tip, you can either have it be normal or you can have it be in Slingshot mode. And what basically occurs in battle is that you basically ride around the rails. Now, the issue with the Slingshot stadium, and much like the other ones we'll be talking about, is how the concept is interesting, but I don't think in gameplay design-wise any of the stadiums are truly perfected. Especially if you look at the prototype concept, which seems more in line with what Takara Tomy would do. The stadium just does not have a good design for actual pockets and KOing. The rails are not properly designed. They kind of feel like they're a little bit on a ramp, kind of, and they'll get stuck a lot. And while there's no doubt about it, there is some entertainment there and fun to try to replicate what the animation shows off, I feel this was very unsuccessfully done. Now, we move on to Rise with Hypersphere. Now, Hypersphere, I will say, is the only time that I believe personally that they were able to do this sort of anime gimmick properly. Now, Hypersphere, essentially, everything was turned into spheres, basically, and it was like this really cool, kind of like back in the day with like the Extreme Top system or whatever it was, the XTS stuff, like the whole half pipe thing, whatever. There was like kind of like this like graffiti feeling, you know, where the Beyblades would go through these like grooves and go all the way up and right around. I feel the original Hypersphere Stadium was probably the most entertaining and the most use of an actual gimmick and extremely fun, to where you can almost separate it and just enjoy it for what it is, even if the bays are also kind of handled poorly for some of, actually a majority of Hypersphere. But you know, for why it works so well in Hypersphere, not Slingshot, is just that it interacts with the stadium very well. My only issue with just the Hypersphere, again, is just proper KOs being done. Like, regardless of any stadium, I think a lot of the gimmicky Hasbro stadiums fail to put, like, the KO part and have all aspects of the gameplay there almost, which is something I always felt like, then after Speedstorm was essentially, they technically kind of did, you just destabilize it. The bays are really tall now. You just destabilize like a little cradle, and that's kind of it. I mean, I could say the same thing with the pocket server. I think that gimmick in itself was probably not too entertaining. And keep in mind, they probably do have to keep thinking of because the bays are now made into crap. They have to think of new ways to advertise all this stuff. I think Quad Strike and Quad Drive are the worst. What is the gimmick of the stadium? The first one is that I guess you kind of go up in levels, and the second one for Quad Strike is basically like a mock of Hypersphere. So now with all that being said, we get to like Beyblade X. Now how does Beyblade X differ now? Well, it's handled by now Takara Tomy, not the hands of Hasbro. And we essentially get the extreme kind of the gear sports type of stuff, where not only does it work well with the stadium gimmick, it feels like an actual Takara Tomy stadium. The pockets and everything are designed well. All like the stadium feels like properly designed for like a competitive setting. Because before you could argue, well, it's more fun, but it's like more of a competitive setting where all this stuff can apply and have all these gameplay aspects there. But what I really love about Beyblade X is how, and they said this in an interview on like the beach thing, which is like this forum thing, where they said they wanted to replicate the excitement of the anime battles. And I don't think any stadium of the past that Hasbro's ever done has ever replicated that excitement in Beyblade X. And I've done now Beyblade X since, well, like June since the early release, there's always that entertainment factor in battles. There's always something there where there's still that competitive aspect there, but the entertainment and the excitement of battles. So that's why I feel Beyblade X and how they handled it is so very strong. And a stadium is not an easy thing to design. I mean, let's be honest now, the bays have to battle in it. They have to heavily consider. And while you could, say, well, there could be design restrictions that Hasbro had to face where they couldn't make the stadiums as good as they would have wanted to, I would most certainly agree, but we have to judge the final product for what is. And I think there's always some sort of appreciation I have towards Beyblade X. I feel that it's like just the most entertaining generation that combines all the stuff that made like the Hasbro stadiums in the past good, but also what made Takara Tomy stadiums good. So that's kind of where I want to end off the video. It's kind of like an appreciation for Beyblade X, but also, we kind of got to go over a little bit of what made the stadiums good or not good, and I'm curious for the future for X, because obviously they intend on keeping the whole